The secret to keeping a brand relevant so it stands the test of time is timeless lessons. We don't believe in brand life cycles at P&G, so they always have to be culturally relevant. The critical factor is that making sure that you know who your consumer is and understanding what are their needs, what are their wants, what are their desires, what are their problems in the current environment, because they always change. And then finding ways to be able to connect your brand, so knowing your brand, and connecting your brand's benefits and its points of difference to that consumer need to be able to make sure that they know that that's the solution for them. Brands will always be in a different environment, so you always have to think about what is happening today. Old Spice is a good example. Old Spice has always been about smelling like a man. And recently they moved into some work with the NFL. The NFL is very culturally relevant. So they brought back Isaiah Mustafa, who was a former NFL player, who was the guy who was on the horse, the man on a horse. Isaiah then is now connected with a bunch of NFL players, and they're talking about how to smell like a football man. They've created some new offerings that they're doing with retailers, like the Saquon Barkley body wash. So, and then they're fueling this through social, as well as through video. And the brand is as relevant today as it was decades ago. In fact, more relevant. So, that's how you do it. You stay culturally relevant by staying in touch with the consumers and what makes your brand tick.
Mark, that really speaks to the power of brand, and from that, I wanted to talk about the power of advertising, particularly traditional advertising, as we see the rise of media channels like CTV, retail media networks. Are there other foundational principles that also remain true, keeping it from that cultural relevance standpoint?
Yeah, the critical part about advertising is to remember that advertising is something that gets you to turn toward your brand. The Latin root of advertising is advertere, which means to turn toward. So advertising is not just traditional TV advertising or print advertising or radio advertising. Advertising is anything that gets you to turn toward your brand. So you really have to broaden your definition of advertising. And that will include video, broadcast TV, over-the-top streaming. YouTube is now the number one connected TV outlet. Social, influencers, content creators, retail media, search, product detail pages, displays in physical stores, all of that is advertising. So the timeless lessons that you need to remember is that advertising builds memory. It actually builds memory structures about the brand and what its benefits and points of difference are. And you want to make sure that every touch point that you have is going to either build or reinforce the memory. So then when you get ready to buy a body wash, you remember Old Spice. When you get ready to buy Pampers or diapers, you buy Pampers. So that's why they call it top of mind. It's literally building memory structures in your brain. If you don't believe me, go talk to Byron Sharp and How Brands Grow, because that's where we learned all this stuff. But that's the way you need to think about advertising. There's now a plethora of ways to do this, and all of our brands need to be thinking about every single one of them.
That is such a great way to think about advertising, and when I think of you, you've taken on this mantle for many years as the kind of corporate statesman, particularly when it comes to the issue of purpose and the role of purpose in branding and advertising. A lot of brands have walked away from that idea in recent years, but what's your sense of the way P&G and you yourself still embrace that idea of a message of purpose?
I think what happened over the years is that the word lost its meaning, or not lost its meaning, it just became too diffuse. We have a purpose as a company that we've had for decades now. That is to improve the lives of the world's consumers with products that provide superior performance and value. And when we do that, we improve their lives every day, they will reward us with leadership, sales, profit, and it actually helps all the constituents we work with, employees, consumers, customers, society, and share owners, prosper now and for generations to come. So the purpose is to focus on our products that are superior performance and value to improve lives. That is a very noble purpose. That's where we focus. We focus on how does Tide, as it cleans your fabrics, as it makes your clothes smell fresh, how does that make your life just a little bit better every day? How does Pampers, that keeps your babies dry, that, like my grandson, that keeps them from waking up in the middle of the night because they have a wet diaper, or because it's got a way to be able to that is soft and fits well. How does that make their lives better, as well as their parents and grandparents' lives better? That's where I think if you focus there, you will be more effective at leveraging purpose, because it fits with your brand or your business. When it moves into spaces outside of that, that's when it starts to lose its meaning. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do good things for the community, but it needs to fit with the brand. Tide. What does Tide do? It has this program called Loads of Hope, that whenever there's a disaster, they send an entire, basically group of trailers to help people clean their laundry after a natural disaster has occurred. It actually returns them to normalcy, because one of the first things they want is clean clothes. So that's a pretty good example of the brand cleaning and what it does to improve lives, and then how it's then doing something good for the community in a time of need.
So with that sense of brand solidity and brand identity in play, wanted to also get your sense of how creativity is affected, particularly in an age of AI and performance-driven marketing. What does that say about the way creativity happens in branding and advertising right now?
Creativity is still driven, and I think will always be driven by first getting a deep insight into a consumer and what they need, what they want, what their tension is. From that insight, creating an idea, a brand idea that makes sense for your brand, and then creating something interesting that then a memorable idea, brand idea, translated into a campaign that communicates its benefits, points to superiority in a recognizable way. Today in the talk I showed Flash. Flash is a UK brand. It's a cleaning brand. Cleans floors, surfaces. Okay. What do? It's a very superior performing product that literally cleans impossible tasks. So they know that insight is that there's some impossible cleaning task that I just feel like I can't get it clean. But Flash cleans the impossible. And what they did is they created a way to make that interesting. They brought Flash Gordon into the mix, and they brought the Flash theme song into the communication, and then they actually have then made it where they have basically a campaign that does the song Flash cleans the impossible. So it's a really, really amazingly creative campaign. They even have a spokes dog called Flash Dog. Why is Flash Dog in there? Because dogs can create impossible cleaning situations, and Flash can clean them up. That's creative.
Well, from impossible tasks and a favorite movie from 1980 and theme song,
yep.
That kind of has me in mind of a futuristic theme. So for the last question, Mark, ask you to maybe look into your crystal ball, and wanted to see if there are any new trends, innovations that you're also keeping a close eye on.
Well, in the brand building world, if you think about what's the trajectory that we're on, where several years ago it was broadcast TV that continues to replaced by over-the-top streaming. Digital media is now social media, with social media that has moved into creation with content creators and influencers, and they then become creatives. The merge of retail and media. Retail players are now media networks. So that's occurring, so that's coming together. So what's happening, and then you overlay that, the technology of AI that allows you to create iterate, produce at speed and at scale, there's going to be another level of creativity that is going to bring to the business, and it's going to move to this future exponential growth, I hope.